Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wondered why so many people believe in alien abductions, even without solid proof? Well, this fascinating paper dives into the psychology behind those beliefs. We've all heard the stories, right? Aliens show up, paralyze people, take them to spaceships, and do all sorts of strange medical or even sexual procedures. It sounds pretty wild, but why is this narrative so compelling for so many people? That is the big question this research tries to answer. The scientists here are looking at how our brains and common sense might actually make these kinds of unbelievable stories feel more believable. They talk about something called minimally counterintuitive ideas. Think of it like this: imagine a creature that is mostly like something we know, say a horse, but with a small weird difference like wings. That is more interesting and easier to grasp than something totally bizarre with no familiar elements. Alien abduction stories, they argue, fit this pattern. They're strange, but they have elements we can relate to. One of the most striking things about the popular image of aliens, the greys with their big eyes and bald heads, is how much they look like us. The paper points out they're bipedal, human-sized, and have recognizable body parts in the same places, just distorted. This is super important because our brains are basically hardwired to be obsessed with other people. For survival, our ancestors had to understand social groups, alliances, and who to mate with. This led to big, powerful brains that are really good at reading and understanding people. So, when we hear stories that involve human-like beings and their behaviors and mental states, our brains just naturally latch onto them. It is easier to process, we remember them better, and we're more likely to believe them. The paper calls this the social compellingness hypothesis. It suggests that when things involve social situations like blame, relationships, or desires, we find them more compelling. This is why an alien abduction story, even a scary one, can resonate so deeply. And interestingly, the paper notes that the Gray's goals, as described by abductees, often revolve around things that are inherently interesting to humans, like sex. It is not digestion or brain function, it is sex, pregnancy, and reproductive organs. Because sex is such a big part of our dreams and lives, stories involving it are more compelling to us. This social focus also means we tend to see agency everywhere, even when it is not there. This is called agenticity by some scientists. It is why we see faces in clouds or think lightning is the work of an angry god. We attribute human-like intentions and actions to things that are not human. This overactive agency detection helps explain why we're so quick to believe in mysterious beings like aliens who act with intent. Now, a really important point is the connection to sleep paralysis. Many abduction experiences happen when people are in a state somewhere between being awake and asleep. Sleep paralysis is super common and can be terrifying. You can't move, feel like you can't breathe, and sense other beings around you. The hallucinations that happen during sleep paralysis are often scary because you are sort of awake but trapped. And guess what kind of beings people often hallucinate during sleep paralysis? Human-like beings. This ties back to our obsession with social interactions when our brains are trying to make sense of a confusing and frightening state. They confabulate with familiar social figures. The paper also touches on the idea of recovered memories. Sometimes people under therapy recall memories of alien abduction that they didn't consciously remember before. The research here suggests that these recovered memories might often be false memories unintentionally created through suggestion. This can happen when someone experiences something confusing, like sleep paralysis, and then therapists help them create a narrative to explain it. Since alien abduction is a common cultural story, it can become a ready-made explanation for a traumatic, confusing event. Here is another significant bias, the negativity bias. Basically, we tend to pay more attention to and believe negative information more readily than positive information. It is like our brains have a built-in better safe than sorry mechanism. Fear makes us more alert, and we give more weight to potential dangers. The frightening nature of abduction stories makes them more compelling. Just like scary urban legends that get retold more often, the fear embedded in the narrative amplifies its impact and makes it more likely to be shared and believed. Beyond just being human, the specific look of the gray alien, the large head, thin body, small features, and big eyes might tap into our perception of intelligence. It's like a supercharged version of what we consider intelligent. Think about it. A super intelligent race of beings with those features just seems more plausible than, say, fat, hairy aliens with tiny eyes. This specific look might be part of why the gray is such a popular image. Now let's talk about how these beliefs spread. An idea that seems weird at first can become more plausible with repeated exposure. This is called an availability cascade. When alien abductions are talked about a lot in the media, in conversations, or in support groups, the idea becomes more accessible in our minds. This makes it easier for us to fit new, unexplained experiences into that existing narrative. It is a self-reinforcing cycle when people find groups of other believers like abductee support groups. This effect intensifies because the ideas are shared more often with less challenge. It's interesting how the interpretation of common experiences like sleep paralysis varies so much across cultures. But in Western culture, it is increasingly interpreted through the lens of alien abduction. So, what does all this mean? This research suggests that belief in alien abduction isn't necessarily about believing in actual aliens visiting us. Instead, it is a fascinating blend of our innate psychological tendencies. Our deep interest in people and social interactions makes humanoid aliens compelling. The scary nature of these stories, amplified by the negativity bias, makes them memorable and shareable. The idea of conspiracy thinking also plays a role. When there is a lack of concrete evidence, believers often interpret this absence as proof of a cover-up, a common tactic in conspiracy theories. And finally, by becoming more popular, the alien abduction narrative becomes more readily available in our minds, making it a convenient explanation for confusing or traumatic experiences, especially when amplified through cultural exposure and support groups. It is a complex interplay of biases, making even the most outlandish stories feel plausible to those who believe. It really highlights how our minds work and how they can construct reality, sometimes in surprising ways. This study does a great job of showing how our inherent psychological makeup, our social wiring, and our biases can contribute to the creation and persistence of beliefs like alien abduction. It is not about saying people are lying, but rather understanding the why behind their deeply held convictions. What do you think about these explanations? Can you see how these cognitive biases might influence your own beliefs or the beliefs of people around you? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you found it interesting and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more breakdowns of fascinating research. We'll see you in the next one.